If you grew up with a parent who is narcissistic, I know it's had a huge impact. There's no way to grow up in a family with a narcissistic parent without some type of emotional abuse, yet you can heal. Really. Truly, there are ways to heal. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And right out front, I want to talk about a very popular concept right now on the internet, which is that if you have a narcissist in your life, you have to cut them off. So I am not going to tell you whether you have to cut them off or you don't have to cut them off. I don't think anybody can make that decision for you. I would like to give you some things to consider. It is not the only option. It is certainly not an easy option most of the time. It's a pretty complex decision to make. And I know that social media does this with a lot of issues. It just wants to like, boom, here's your answer. Boom, 30 seconds or less. You have everything you need to know about this. None of that's true. So I want to talk about how the concept of cutoff or not cutting off ties with the concept of enmeshment. And if you grew up with a narcissistic parent, you definitely grew up in an enmeshed family. And cutoff is part of enmeshment. So let's talk about this. And again, I can already imagine people who are hearing me say don't cut off are going to be in the comments like you have to or I had to. And people who don't like the concept at all will be in there. I'm not saying either one of those things. So bear with me. In an enmeshed family, everybody is like in each other's business. Emotions are meshed. Responsibilities might be confused or enmeshed. I'm going to explain this a little bit more. But basically, it isn't clear whose emotions am I feeling, which family members get to feel which emotions is always part of the issue, which family members are supposed to be responsible for the other ones who then aren't responsible for anything, right? It's like all of these things get confused. And within an enmeshed family, people aren't allowed to fully individuate. So part of our job as a parent when we're raising children is to help them individuate, help them figure out who are they, what are their values, what do they want to do with their lives, right? Who are they as a special, unique, wonderful person on this planet? I saw a big portion of my parenting responsibility being helping my kids individuate, being okay with who they were and what they wanted to do, and then becoming independent from me and independent adults. Right? When a family is enmeshed, you're really not allowed to do that. Or you're not allowed to do it fully and not allowed to do it in every way. So if somebody's in a family system that's enmeshed and they're not allowed to individuate, they either kind of cut off parts of themselves so they fit and they stay, or they feel, no, individuating is more important. I'm going to cut off. So in order to individuate, they leave the enmeshed family. So this concept of enmeshment was first really expanded on by a therapist called Bowen. And part of his theory was that in an enmeshed family, you will always find people who are cut off. And I do talk about this concept in one of my videos on enmeshment in particular, but I want to start talking about how narcissism is necessarily part of an enmeshed system, because the narcissist sees other people in their lives as a tool, as a extension of themselves. Other people exist to fill the narcissist's needs, wants, and desires. So by its very basic nature, a narcissist is enmeshed with others. If you grow up with a narcissist, you'll be enmeshed. So whether you feel that you need to fully cut off and leave the family system in order to become who you really want to be, or if you feel like you don't, either way, there's healing that needs to be done. And the healing is common to both. So I want to go through 5 components of healing from a narcissistic parent. So the first one is to really understand this issue of enmeshment and how it has impacted you. Sometimes people do feel that they need a time away from their family in order to really figure that out. So sometimes there is a piece of the healing process where somebody does engage in cutting off or moving away or minimizing contact. If somebody is fully able to do the work and no longer be enmeshed, they usually can reestablish contact. Now, again, I might get a lot of pushback on this one. This is really tied to how bad the abuse was, right? If there is severe abuse, physical abuse, worse, then maybe not. But if it is more, or it's moved more towards an element where it is the anger you hold, we're going to come to that in a moment, or comments that get under your skin and then bother you for days, once you've really done your healing work, it is possible to emotionally boundary yourself where that stuff won't bother you as much. Now, this does not mean you want to be living next door. No, right? You still probably want to be really minimizing the contact with a narcissistic parent. But again, whether you maintain contact, cut off for a period of time, cut off forever, doing the work to de-enmesh, right? Really important. That's about finding out who you are. Because the thing is that if we don't heal from this stuff, we go on and we recreate it in our next relationship and our next relationship and our next one. So if we're used to being the caretaker and we grew up worrying about mom or dad's needs all the time and then all our siblings' needs, we are likely to find a partner where we have to take care of their needs unless we've done the work and the healing work. Similarly, if we had a critical narcissistic dad and then we go to work and our boss criticizes us, we might have a traumatic response to that, not because the boss is so bad, or even if the boss is so bad, oh well, right? But we might have an extreme response because we haven't done the healing work. So really healing from that enmeshment is the biggest component of that for you, for your life, right? Okay, the second component of healing has to do with anger. And I'm going to divide this into two pieces because part of this is feeling the anger, and then the next part is moving beyond the anger. So if you grew up with a narcissistic parent and you are not in touch with your anger about it, I do feel that that's a necessary step in the process. Really feeling the anger, because we feel anger when we're hurt. And if you have a narcissistic parent, I guarantee you were hurt. We get angry when things aren't fair. And I guarantee that if you had a narcissistic parent, things weren't fair, right? And then there's the boundaries. The other reason we get angry. If you have a narcissistic parent, all three of those boundaries are violated, your feelings and your being are severely hurt, and overall things aren't fair. So being in touch with that anger and understanding it and letting it fuel your recovery process can be really, really helpful, but we don't want you to stay there. I've listened to a handful of other videos that are vitriolic and really angry about the narcissistic parent, and I understand that, but it's not the healthy place to live for the rest of your life. We don't know why somebody becomes narcissistic. We don't know why somebody has narcissistic personality disorder. There seems to be a genetic trait, but that could also be a learned trait. It does seem to sometimes reoccur occasionally through the generations in a family system, right? But also trauma is transferred intergenerationally. So we don't know what caused this. And having narcissistic personality disorder is not really enjoyable. It's not like the person is living like an incredibly joyful life. So I'm not saying to have compassion that in any way will make you compromise your boundaries or what you need to do. But once you get through the healing process, I do think it is possible to understand that for whatever reason, this person couldn't be different. So I know this is like really hard to explain and to talk about. And I do love the phrase compassion does not excuse inexcusable behavior. But I do think there is a point at which you can say, okay, I am not tolerating any inexcusable behavior anymore, but I can have compassion for you that you're a suffering human being on this planet and wish you well, but no, you're not allowed to do that to me anymore. So again, this is tough stuff. This is not like 30-second video stuff. But keep in mind that the anger and resentment, holding on to that forever, will damage you, not them. So if you need that anger for a period of time to protect yourself, because that's what it's for, it's a protective emotion to protect yourself, to help you get strong, great. We don't necessarily want to be there forever. And moving towards the letting go of that anger does bring in the next healing component I want to talk about, which is grief. Part of the healing process is to grieve that you didn't get what you should have been able to get. you didn't get the childhood you should have had. So both grieving for your lost childhood, grieving for what could have been different, and then also letting go of this ideal of the ideal parent, the mythological father or mother or protector parent who is supposed to be, wonderful to you. That is the best. But grieving that you didn't have it and you won't, right? It's a grief process. I don't really know how else to explain it, so I'm hoping that makes sense. And if it doesn't, please let me know in the comments, because it's always useful to get your guys' feedback. It really is super helpful. Your expectations for what you should have had and for what you wanted from your parents are valid. They really are. But these unmet needs, wants, and desires need to be grieved. All right, 2 more components. One is to relieve yourself of the responsibility. You didn't cause this. Even if your siblings were treated completely differently by your parents, which is likely within a narcissistic family, even if they don't have the same feelings and upset that you have, this is not your fault. This is not about you or something wrong with your personality. A natural outcome of being in a relationship with a narcissist is that we take on the responsibility for what is happening because the narcissist takes on no responsibility and pushes it on us. And if it is our parent doing that to us, little kids believe their parents, right? Little kids believe everything their parents say. So it's impossible not to believe it at a very early stage of your development. So if you have taken on responsibility for the difficulties in the relationships, part of your healing process is to really let that go. And yes, sometimes in a narcissistic family, one child is kind of the golden child who can do no wrong, and that child is often the one that's the most like the narcissist. And I get comments in my channel like, why don't my siblings feel this way about our dad? Why am I the only one? Why does my golden child brother agree with everything and stay with the system? Because that child was given a different role. But believe me, they were given a role. They weren't allowed to individuate. Again, that's another complicated topic. Let me know if you want to know more on that. But this wasn't your responsibility. So the family roles could be the scapegoat. It could be the lost child, could be the mascot, could be the hero child, golden child, right? In a narcissistic family, in an enmeshed family, people take on different roles. So healing from that, very important. And each one of those roles has a negative core belief. And people will keep these negative core beliefs, believing I'm bad, I'm the bad one, I'm the guilty one, I was wrong, I'm defective, I'm not good enough. People hold on to those beliefs because they're embedded in that emotional brain for a long, long time until they heal. All right, the 5th concept is really to take an active role in your recovery and in your healing. What are your options? What support do you need? Do you need a therapist who's really trained in this? Do you need boundary work? Do you need to take a period of no contact? Yeah, what do you need? Take an active role, look into it. Know you truly can heal from this. In my video on Never Argue with a Narcissist, I do talk about the gray rock method. That's one method to bring in. There's different tools and techniques that you can bring into your life actively that will really help you shift this relationship. But the shift in relationship, and maybe this is really the conclusion to everything I'm saying today, the shift in relationship is going to be about you taking care of yourself, not about the narcissist changing, unfortunately. So limiting contact, developing stronger boundaries, improving your self-esteem. I do have a free boundary quiz that kind of ties in this concept of the negative core belief with what your habits are in relationships with regard to boundaries. You might find it illuminating. Many people have. So I'll put the link here, and I'll also put the link in the description to this video. But understanding that combination, how am I interacting with people? What are my relationship patterns in terms of the boundaries I hold or don't hold? And how does that tie into my negative core belief? This stuff is key for really figuring it out and healing. I truly hope this was helpful for you. I wish you health and healing. Hope you're subscribed to my channel. Give this a like if you liked it, and I'll see you next week. Bye.